What about the criminal justice system? That was a standout quote, wasn't it? That actually there are more black people in Britain in the prison system proportionately than there is in the United States.
Yeah, and it's a terrible feature, actually. And most of the criminologists that I spoke to, their explanation was pretty simple, was that there's endemic racism, but even worse than that, actually, it's the punitive criminal justice system, where you have a very hard policy of prison works, which basically means you get a custodial sentence. And so you can see...
And you're more likely to get it if you're black.
Well, it just snowballs, doesn't it? You get stops and search too often, there's a sort of degree of suspicion, the criminal justice system is sort of imbued with it, the police kind of get infected by it, and it just rolls all over. And then you just get lots of, generations of young black men who are sort of shoved through prison, which, is not an easy... it's not easy for British society to deal with, I think. I don't think we want to replicate the same sorts of problems we have with reoffending and what do you do with troubled young men who shouldn't have been in prison perhaps in the first place.
Indeed. We'll end up like The Wire in Baltimore.
Well,
tell me this. Another standout for me was that, in fact, I underestimated it in my talk up to the show, 17% less women are earning still. In the era of the Equal Pay Act and the new movie Made in Dagenham and so on, 17% is a big pay differential between women and men.
Yeah, and I think the disappointing thing is grinding to a halt. Now, here's an interesting left-right divide, I think, is that the left's argument has mostly been about barriers to opportunity. The counter-argument has always been, well, there's by some action you have chosen not to access that. I mean, it's your own actions by which you've made your destiny. And with women, it's motherhood and the choice of. But I still think that at some point we have to sort of recognise that people do jobs and they deserve the same pay for them. So I sort of slightly... The right's argument veers towards sort of saying you've taken a career break or the money's the same when you start, it just diverges later on. But I think about a third of income differentials cannot be explained by anything else but discrimination on basis of gender.
Let's finish on a positive note then. You touched on it earlier. It is a remarkable feature in my lifetime how Britain's attitude towards homosexual people has changed. I saw some horrific pictures from Serbia the other day of thugs in huge numbers attacking gay rights demonstrators. Inconceivable now, really, in Britain. And, actually a survey recently showed there are fewer gay people in the country than we previously thought, and yet, paradoxically, their discrimination against them is far, far less.
Yeah, well, it's only been a few decades, or less than a couple of decades, since Section 28 and the kind of movement, or the very extreme conservatism, social conservatism, which said that promoting homosexuality would be illegal. I don't think anyone was prosecuted under Section 28. And you've got to remember that we only repealed it, I think, less than a decade ago. So it's been a remarkable public acceptance that sexual orientation is something that's sort of we can't sort of legislate out of existence, and here they are among us. I mean, the lesbian, gay, transgender community are sort of
out and proud, yeah.
Yeah, and that's only to welcome. I think that the worrying thing is the school children, the level of homophobic bullying. I think 17% of those questions said they'd received death threats. That's quite a...
Oh, sure, it hasn't entirely gone away, no doubt.
No, and we've seen a series of attacks involving school children against young gay men. That's also very troubling.
It's very well worth pointing out. Randeep, I knew you would have read every one of those 700 pages. That's why we booked you. Thanks very much indeed for helping us. Randeep Ramesh, the Guardian's social affairs editor. 08717 223344. How fair is Britain? How fair is it to expect our students to pay thousands of pounds and run up tens of thousands of pounds worth of debt in order to go to university when we will all benefit from a better educated society? I'm just going through this report and there's some astonishing things in it. Some which make you glad and some which make you sad. Britons in the survey say that they are concerned about the scale of immigration at a national level. No surprise there then. But the same proportion feels that immigration is not a problem for their own communities. Well, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? People are concerned about immigration, but not where they live. But the same proportion of people that are concerned about the level of immigration don't regard it as a problem in their own communities. The gender pay gap remaining. Men earning 16% more on women on average. But here's an even more significant statistic tucked away in there. The thesis is that because women take breaks from work to have babies and bring them up at least until school age and then go back into the workforce, that's the reason for the gap, the disparity. But in fact, women with degrees face only a 4% loss in lifetime earnings as a result of motherhood, whilst mothers with no qualifications suffer a 58% loss. And to balance the point I made about the transformation in attitudes towards homosexuality in Britain, one of the most shocking revelations in this report, given the acceptance of homosexuality in adult life, was the level of homophobic bullying found in schools. The Commission found that 2/3 of lesbian, gay and transgender secondary students report that they've been victims of often severe bullying. 17% of those bullied reported having received death threats. So, tell me, what do you think about Britain today? Is it fairer? Is it a more just, more open, more tolerant society? Are you gay and you can tell us something about what it's like to be gay in Britain? Are you black? Have you been in the prison system with the hugely disproportionate number of black inmates? How did you end up there? How do you think other black people, especially men, have ended up there? Tell me what you think about the free school meals syndrome, we might call it, whereby the kids that start school at 5 and get free school meals because the house they come from is so poor will end up at the end of the school year in exactly the same place, of failure. By and large, the education system, therefore, has not transformed their life expectancy in any way.